This is lesson 16 of Kittel and Hoffer's Biblical Hebrew, focusing on kal, affix, and prefix of first nun roots, as well as third hey roots. The first nun material should already be familiar to you from previous lessons. I apologize if the sound quality is less good in this particular presentation. I am using a different microphone. Let's begin by pronouncing our sentence. Vayipol Yosef al pnei aviv, vayevk alav, vayishak lo. Vayipol Yosef al pnei aviv, vayevk alav, vayishak lo. Okay, this is a proper name, which you should recognize as Joseph. We've seen this phrase quite frequently recently. This is al pnei aviv, upon the face of his father. This is our old friend alav, not to be confused with elav. So this is alav, upon him. And then finally, lo. Frequently lo means to him. In this case, lo is marking the direct object of a verb. So this is a new use of the lamed prefix which we have not previously seen, marking the direct object. Sometimes we expect et. Here we have lamed. So if we put these into place, this is where we are before we really get started. So there's a few words left, and they are all verbs. The first verb we need to look at is vayipol. So if we were to parse vayipol, the first thing we're going to notice is this vav patak double in a yod. This is our old familiar friend, the vav conversive. Now because the verb is a vav conversive, we already know that it's a prefix. We probably knew that anyway, but if not, the vav conversive clearly marks it. Now we have a yod. So the person, gender, and number of verb marked with the yod and with no complement is third masculine singular. So we know this is and he did something. Now the stem. Trying to figure out the stem of this verb, we might notice a couple of things. One is that we have a dagesh in this pei. The other is that we have a hirek under the prefix. We also have a holum after the second root radical. So the vowels of this form look like a kal. Vayifkod, vayipol. But the dagesh looks like a pl. So if we remember then that the dagesh is an assimilated first nun, then we realize this is a kal of nafal. So what looks like a PL there is actually simply an assimilated nun. We would have had vayin pol, but the nun does not like to stand over a silent shva, so it becomes vayipol. So if we were to translate, and he fell. So we put that into place, and he fell. Now let's skip to the end of the verse and look at vayishak. Vayishak. Having done the previous one, this one should be quite straightforward. So again, we find the vav patak double, special feature. We find the form then is going to be prefix. We look at our yod and we see third masculine singular. The stem again is we've got a dagesh in the shin. We've got a hirek under the yod. And again, this is going to be kal of a first nun root, so nashak, and it means and he kissed. So let's put that into place, and he kissed. And that leaves us with this verb, vayevk. Alright, let's look at this verb. This is quite an unusual looking verb, vayevk. Now, we can start like we've been starting, which is to look at the beginning of the word, vav patak double. This is indicating to us that this is a vav conversive. And once we know it's a vav conversive, we also know it's a prefix. So So that means for person, gender, number, we can look at our prefix. We see no prefix complement, so this is a third masculine singular. And he did something. Now the question then is what root and stem. So the stem. Now our normal indicators are not here. Here we see a tsere under the prefix, which often indicates, or up until now, has indicated a first yod. But we've got this odd vowel pattern here where we have two shvas in a row. The first one, actually, technically, both of them are vocal. Vayevk is how this is normally pronounced. So this is something other than what we've seen in the past. This is an irregular form, and it is in fact a kal, and it is a kal of a third hey, ka. So this is actually an irregular form of the kal vav conversive of a third hey root, and we'll look at that a little further in just a second. So if this is baka and the kal prefix vav conversive and a third masculine singular, then it means and he wept. Now let's take a couple of minutes to look at the kal prefix of third hays. Now for our standard root we can use the root bana, bet nun hey, which means to build. So the prefix looks like this: yivne, tivne, tivne, tivni, evne. Yivnu, tivnena, tivnu, tivnena, nivne. Alright, now let's look at what's happening here. In all of the forms without a prefix complement, what you have is simply the full root is expressed, bet nun hey, with a segel before the hey. So yivne. You see that here, tivne, tivne, and then in the first common evne, as well as the first common plural, nivne. So all of the ones with a prefix but no complement look like this: yivne, tivne, tivne, evne, nivne. Now if they do have a complement, then what happens is we lose our hey. So you see here, tivni, the prefix complement e has attached directly to the nun, which is the second root radical. So we've lost our hey altogether, tivni. Same thing happens in the third masculine plural, yivnu. Our third root radical has disappeared, yivnu, as well as second masculine plural, tivnu. Now then the third and second feminine plural forms, what's happened is our hey has become a yod. Now the reason this happens, and we'll talk more about this later, but it seems to be the case that in Proto-Semitic, what are third hey roots in Hebrew were in fact third yod roots in Proto-Semitic. So when the hey comes then in the middle of the word, it tends to revert back to its original yod form. So here we see the third hey expressing itself as a third yod, so tivnena, and then of course the same form in the second feminine plural, tivnena. Now if we look at the second root, which is also regular for third hey, gala, then we get yigle, tigle, tigle, tigli. Again, the third hey has disappeared. Egle, yiglu, and here the third hey has disappeared again. Tiglena, here the third hey is expressed as a yod. Tiglu, tiglena, nigle. So this is the kal prefix of a regular third hey. Now let's look at the prefix vav conversive of a regular third hey, which is slightly different than the prefix by itself. So we get the form yivne, which is our prefix third masculine singular of bana in the kal. Now if we then wanted to see the vav conversive, it will look like this, vayiven. Two things have happened here. One is that the accent has retracted to the first syllable. Second is we've lost our hey. So yivneh in the prefix, vayiven in the prefix vav conversive. Up until now, our prefix forms and our prefix vav conversive forms have been the same, except for the vav conversive. Here we see one case in which they are not the same. Similarly, yegle, vayigel. Here again you see the retracted retracted accent and the lost hey. So yivneh, vayiven, yegle, vayigel. So if we were then to look at the Cal prefix vav conversive in the full paradigm, vayiven, vativin, vativin, vativni, vaevan, vayivnu, vativnena, vativnu, vativnena, vayniven. Now you notice that in the forms that have the prefix complements, that the accent has moved back to the final syllable, or the syllable where it originally belonged, and they express themselves just like the prefix without the vav conversive. So in the second feminine singular, we would have expected tivni in the prefix and vativni in the prefix vav conversive. So it's only the forms which lack a prefix complement in which we see this retraction from yivneh to vayiven. However, this is not still quite our form. So the one last thing to learn, some third hey roots have irregular vav conversives. So not only is the vav conversive of the third hey different than its prefix, but some third heys have irregular vav conversives, even from the form we've already seen. These are, for instance, shata. The prefix of shata, as we would expect, is yishteh, but the prefix vav conversive is vayesht. Here you see a tzere under the prefix, the retracted accent, and the two shvas in a row. It's a very distinctive looking word, vayesht. It happens because it loses its third hey and the accent retracts, which changes the vowel pattern under the other letters. So shta, yishteh, vayesht. We can see the same thing with the root that is in our current sentence, baka, yivkeh, vayevk. Here again, retracted accent, shvas under both root radicals, and the tzere under the prefix. One that is slightly different, nata. You can see the problem here is we have a third nun, which is also a first hey. So what it's going to do in the prefix is yiteh. There you see that the nun has assimilated. You would expect yinteh, but instead yiteh. Now when we go to the vav conversive here, if it's an irregular vav conversive, like the two we just saw, and it becomes vayet. So because now the tet is the end of the word, the assimilated nun does not express itself. So vayet, a very unusual looking word, because it only has one root radical that appears. The nun has assimilated and then disappeared because of the end of the word. The hey has disappeared because the prefix vav conversive. So shata yishteh vayesht, baka yivkeh vayevk, nata yiteh vayet. These are the main occurrences of this peculiar form, but we will see others as we go through the semester. Now if we come back to our sentence, we can put and he wept for vayevk. And now what we need to do then is just make sense of our sentence. So vayipol Yosef al pnei aviv vayevk alav vayishak lo. And Joseph fell upon the face of his father, and he wept upon him, and he kissed him. And that is our lesson for today. Good job. Do the exercises at the end of the chapter, and then continue on with Genesis 22. Theoretically, we should be up to verse 11 for next time.